Hola, bienvenidos a la masterclass de Ida Asferg. Ella está especializada en puppets, vestuario, pelucas, escultura y modelado. Ha participado en diversos estudios de animación y cortometrajes como Liz and Eve y Reverie. Además, actualmente se encuentra realizando otra. Welcome, Ida.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. Can you start with your presentation and see you later?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the opening. Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to share with you my screen here, which is my presentation, yes. So I'm going to make a talk on the Wirefly Studio and the methods in puppet building that we use in general there. Of course, with myself as the main subject. Yeah. So first I'm going to start just to talk a little bit about me, myself, and my own background. Then I will continue to talk about the Wirefly Studio and the different projects that we have in the line right now. And then about our general methods of puppet building that we use there. And then afterwards, I will tell you about the amazing world of 3D printing with UV resin, which is something that I found out that you could do a lot with recently. And lastly, I want to share with you my own technique of wig making. So I actually came into the industry in a bit of a back way because I didn't really know that you could do anything with stop motion for a living until at my education in Denmark at the animation workshop, I did a little puppet building course over a weekend, and I just fell completely in love with puppet building. So in my bachelor degrees there at the animation workshop, I started to do puppets, like self-studies and making my own puppets instead of actually doing all the computer graphic things that I was supposed to do, because my education was actually linked to more like 3D animation and 2D animation and sculpting and modeling in 3D and stuff. But I just really, really loved to be able to work with my hands instead of sitting so much in front of the screen. So these two puppets here are my first puppets I ever made at the school in my free time, and whenever I had the possibility to do puppets. And after school, I was so lucky to meet Johan Oettinger, who is the person, the guy who owns the Wirefly Studio, and he made the 7 Minutes in the Warsaw Ghetto, which is this guy over here. That is, I think, his most known movie. It's a short movie. Maybe some of you know it. So the first project I want to tell you about that we do at Wirefly at the moment is the project called Vocabulantis, which is actually a stop motion game, a computer game. And the story of this game is that the two main characters, the two children, Kurt and Carla, are a little bit, they've been friends forever, these two children, and now they are starting to have feelings for each other. So they try to tell each other how they feel, and by that, in that intense moment when they try to tell each other how they feel, they actually ruin the whole world of language and have to travel into the world of language to fix the language again and to be able to tell each other how they feel. So that's also why maybe you can see it here that the puppets don't have mouths. It's because that they actually lose their mouths in the game when they ruin the world of language. So the way we go about making a stop motion game is that the main characters, all the characters are animated just as you would in stop motion normally, like in Dragon Frame. But then we just do it with a gray backdrop where we expose the characters to 6 different kinds of lighting to be able to. So every frame actually is shot 6 times with 6 different kinds of lighting. So that makes us able to take this lighting information and actually generate a 3D light where we can shine on this stop motion animation in the computer, and therefore they can go around in this world being affected by the light, and you really get the feeling that you're actually controlling a stop motion character in a stop motion environment in this game, which I think is really cool. So for the backgrounds and the props and all other things around these characters we have in the game, everything is built in hand. So every prop you see is built in hand, and then afterwards we scan it with a 3D scanner, which takes 500 pictures approximately of this object, this single object, from 500 different angles. And then we can also generate it in 3D and actually get all the information of lighting and reflections in reflective surfaces and moss textures and stuff. We can all get that, but in the computer, so we get that feel of real stop motion in the game. So I want to show you just a video of the progress so far in the game Vocabulensis, because it's very much still a project in development. So I will flip to the next side and show you this little video here with the sound up.
Come on. Oh, boy of no use.
Oops. Yes, okay. So I will just make it full screen again. So there you can see how we actually work with the photogrammetry scanning of the different objects and how we expose these characters to 6 different kinds of light. Yeah. So, oops. The next project I want to share with you is a little bit different. It's way darker, and it's also still a work in progress. It's called Sibir, and it's a short film about 3 soldiers, 3 German Nazi soldiers actually, who are lost in the Siberian snow desert. And here in the snow desert, they face the ferocities that they've done and the terrible things that they've done, and you know, they are being haunted by their demons, so to say. So it's very dark, but I think it's turned out beautiful. So in this project, we focus a lot on how the materials feel. It's much more experimental with the materials, and we want to have a certain feel of roughness to it. So I just want to show you the teaser for this film, which is not done yet, but it's in progress. Yup.
You have done nothing wrong. They were just animals. Animals. Continue. 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 Snow. All this fucking snow. Just animals. Animals. Wolf. The wolf remains. The wolf. Cold. Cold. Cold.
Yes, so that's a whole different kind of mood we have here. But I think that's very saying of what we like at Wirefly Studio. We like it both to be, you know, very whimsical and very charming, and have these perfect kind of puppets that, you know, it's just this cute miniature, but we also like another side that is really artistic and really dark, and you know, a much more grown audience that we're going for. But so for the Sibir puppets, as I said, we wanted to go for a rougher look. So the designs I started to make for these characters were with a rough pencil and with rough, greasy pencil materials and all this to kind of assemble this harsh environment that they are in, and to show how tough their situation is. So when we went over to the real materials, the puppet materials, we wanted to achieve that same kind of roughness. And I was working with Anu Laura Tudelberg on this one, who is a very talented puppet maker too, with a lot of knowledge with materials. And we tried to achieve like this very rough feeling of the texture. So we actually ended up having black wrap as you use for photography. We had black wrap painted with wood glue, and then we plated all the fabrics that we wanted to use on top of these black wrap pieces, so that we got these very sharp and crunchy folds in the fabrics that, as you can see on the soldiers' clothing there. And then we also worked with trying to make the clay that we used for the faces and hands a bit more rough. So we mixed it up with sand to make it more like textural, more concrete feel. So the aim of this project wasn't to make it look as pretty and you know, tied together as possible. It had to look broken, and it had to feel crumbly because of the character's situation, that they also had this crumbling feeling in themselves. So when we went about when I went about doing the legs of the characters, it was really difficult because I wanted to achieve this kind of rough look that, you know, as if the leg was made of stone, but you have these bendable areas around the knees and around the ankles that you really need flexible. So I tried out different things, and as you can see in this corner here, I have some tests, but I actually ended up doing just normal foam, mattress foam on the entire leg, and then covering it with plaster, kind of plaster called acrylic one. It was so a resin kind of plaster, and then I cracked it in the right areas where I wanted these cracks, so as to give it this kind of, when you bend the leg, it crumbles open a little bit, and then when you close the leg, it crumbles together again. So you get these very hard spots on the material that kind of moves around flexibly, which I was really happy about. Yeah, so that was really interesting to make. As for the lip syncing, it was just really like crude lip syncing, face replacements where you can still see the area where it's stuck onto, but that kind of tied together with the whole look of the character that it was okay to see the line where it was attached. So that was a whole other way to work than with the Kurt and Carla puppets for the Vocabulensis project. So let's continue to another project, which is called Totem. And this is actually not a primarily Wildfly project. This is more, Katrine Glenhammer, the director, who made a very cute little story about a prehistoric woman who needs to find her totem animal. And in this case, her totem animal was a wild boar. So I assisted in this puppet making at Wildfly Studio to make the giant puppet here, the wild boar puppet, and also the little piglet beside her here. And I just want to go briefly over it because it was kind of funny to have to work with these massive changes in scale. So as for reference, the wild boar puppet is about 40 centimeters wide, and the tiny piglet is about 4 centimeters long. So that's a big difference. So I mainly worked on the inside of the wild boar, and Katrine did the needle felting on top. But I wanted to make sure that the big giant puppet didn't get too heavy, because, you know, already with the armature, it would be very heavy with all those big joints that was needed to hold the puppet. So I tried to create this hollow kind of shape, but it was really difficult to be able to hold the shape when the wild boar would bend the stomach to keep that kind of round shape. So we actually, in the end, we ended up making some ribs, or I ended up making some ribs around it, which I would probably do a little bit different now. But in the end, you could kind of open a lid in the stomach of the wild boar to access the hollowness inside and to figure out whatever you needed to figure out with the joints in there. So yeah, and then the eyes of the boar also with small LED lamps that shines while it's being animated. It's really cute. But if I had to do something different for that wild boar puppet, I would probably not use as many double joints as I did, because I wasn't that experienced in making soldering armatures at that point. So I just thought, you know, the more balls, the better, because that's how it is. But in the end, it just got really weird and you know, hard to control for the animator, with the puppets kind of meshing together, to kind of imploding. I hope you know what I mean, but it's the kind of feeling you get when you have an armature in your hands that, you know, a double joint can kind of implode. So that I would do differently. And for the little piglet, it was a whole nother thing, because it was so tiny that the problem was to fit everything in there. So it's basically it consists of a little lump of milliput, which has some brass tubes where you can stick in the wires for the legs. If they break, you can exchange the wires and add new ones. But that's basically it. So that was a little bit easier than the big guy. Yeah. So I think in general at Wirefly, we do all the different steps in the production. Like I'm also, from my education, I can do designs as well as concept art and such things. But yeah, we do everything from silver soldering, or I do everything from silver soldering to molding and casting, like sculpting Chavent puppets, like maquettes to see if the shape works in 3D from the design. And then we do silicon casts, but I tend to stay away from latex foam casting because I feel like it has this weird wrinkly texture that I don't like. So that's like a personal preference, that I'm more happy about silicon. But I also have like my own opinions about silicon, because I feel like silicon can get very silicon-y. Like you can really see that it's silicon oftentimes, and I would like to keep that at a minimum. So what I prefer to do when I do silicon is that I like to just, airbrush in some kind of color variation with a silicon system. I use Psycho Paint for that, and then I like to just end out with a layer of matting down of the silicon, and I do that with a translucent powder on like wet clear silicon in the end, because then you get that kind of shiny plastic effect away, and I prefer that a lot. Yeah. So I think I forgot to talk about how Kurt and Carla are made for the Vocabulensis project that I showed in the beginning. But it's basically a very simple puppet. They consist of the things that you would think they consist of. They consist of a ball and socket armature. They have resin cast face replacements, and they have silicon necks and silicon hands. And their costumes are made out of, like, handmade out of fabric. So I didn't do the wigs on them, but a nice detail on the wigs for Kurt and Carla is that the hair are made out of human hair from Johan Oettinger, the owner of Wirefly, and his wife for Carla. So I think that's a really cute detail to keep in mind, or to remember to say. Yeah, so that's a little bit about general puppet building. If you have any other questions in this field, then I will be happy to answer them in the Q&A. But let's continue to 3D printing, which is one of the things that I just figured out. I could combine my computer graphics skills with my stop motion skills and kind of get the best of both worlds there. So at the Wirefly studio, we use two kinds of resin printers, which is the photon printer and the Elegoo Mars printer, that are very, very easy to use. And it's not a complex system. It's very like user friendly. And the way that UV resin printing works is that you have this vat here, which is filled with a UV sensitive resin, and the basin here is see-through, and then we have a screen underneath in the printer that shines light up through the resin and onto this this build plate here, where the 3D print attaches itself. So what you need to get started with 3D printing is basically a well-ventilated room that you can make completely dark, it doesn't have to be completely dark, but just try to keep out all the UV light that you can, which is basically sunlight. And then you need to wear gloves and, you know, well ventilated to try to avoid touching this UV resin too much. But it's not, it is toxic, so don't put your face in it. But you shouldn't be afraid of starting with this because of the UV resin, because I think you can really achieve some awesome detailed work with using a UV resin printer instead of, maybe some people have tried to do something with filament printers, which are those printers that just kind of puts small sausages on a board until it's something. And we also had that, but it's just not as detailed as what you can get in the image of the little yellow thingy I made. So what can you use it for? Because yeah, now I just presented a new technology, and what is the use? So the use is, for an example, face replacements. And I'm really hyped about this because you can just achieve so much more with having your face in 3D, and actually then you're actually able to go in afterwards if you really feel like you miss an expression, or if you really feel like you miss an in-between mask, then you can just go in there and find it and generate it and print it out. So what you need to be able to do to make a 3D printed mask is you need to be able to make work a 3D software. And I personally use Maya or ZBrush, which is very user, like, I think you just need to take a little time to get used to it, and then you'll be fine. So there's also the free software called Blender, which I know that a lot of people like, so that might be better because Maya and ZBrush are kind of expensive. But so you basically need a 3D program, and then you can make the same kind of shapes that you would do for a normal face replacement system. So the things to keep in mind when doing a face replacement system, whether it's for 3D or for like a 3D print or for a resin cast, is that you need to have locators, as you can see here. So something that keeps the mask from sliding around, because that can really jar up the animation, and then it'll just be useless to have those expression casts or printed, because you could just as well as just model a new one. So keep those masks located with some kind of locator that fits like a puzzle piece into the mask, but don't make the entire mask touch the entire surface of the backhead, because then there will be so much fitting issues. So I would recommend to only have the edge of the backhead like kind of fit onto the mask. As you can see here, I have a little line where they fit. So yeah, that's recommendable. And then you also need to keep in mind how you're actually gonna hold your eyeballs in place. And you can either just, if you want to print it, you can just leave a hole where you can mold and cast a silicone eye socket for your eyes, or you can basically, as I did here, you can model in some grabbers that you can kind of click the eyes into, and then they can still wiggle around in there. Yeah. But I really think that for face replacement systems, I think UV resin printing is really cool. And it's not as scary as it sounds. But another cool thing that you can do with resin printing is that you can do eyes, like really, really cool naturalistic eyes. And the good thing about 3D printing it is that you can control the size completely, and you can control that it's a perfect sphere. So you can control that it's, I think this eye that I have pictures of here is 1.1 centimeter. So that's quite useful when you have a design and you really need to fit some eyes in there perfectly. Then you're not tied up to some kind of standard size for, I don't know, metal balls or whatever you like to use for casting a perfect sphere. So the way that we do it at Wirefly is that we have 4 or 5 different types of resin, and then we have the sculpted eye that we print out. So that's the first resin. That's the UV sensitive resin that the printer uses to print. And then on top of that, we add, in the area where we want the iris to be, we pour in a colored resin that could be green or blue or anything like pink. And you can also put more colors in there, like whatever you need for your design. That was one more resin. Then we put in a black pupil, that's black resin, so 3 resins. And then at the end, we put in a crystal clear resin pupil on, not a pupil, sorry, a lens on top of the eye to kind of resemble that natural lens feel that an eye has. So if you look at an eye from the side, the iris is actually quite flat and bending inwards with the pupil, and then the lens comes around on top. So that was really great to figure out that you could do that with the resin printer. Also, I need to add that the resin printers aren't that expensive. Like the industry is evolving so fast that they actually are able to sell some of these resin printers for a decent amount of money. Yes. And then lastly, you can, of course, also use resin printing for all your small miniatures, like as if, for an example, if you need to make these chairs, you would think that, oh no, then I have to model this little piece and then cast it 100 times and then gather it together again. And then with a resin printer, you can just really quickly print a lot of these pieces and piece them together. And this over here is another example of what you can do with the 3D printer. You can, so this was actually a real sewing machine that we found, like a really old one, really beautiful one, that we put into the photogrammetry scanner, the 3D scanner that we use for Vocabulensis, the Vocabulensis game project. And then we just scanned it, generated it in 3D, and then scaled it down a lot so that this is like a 5 centimeter perfect copy of the old sewing machine that we found. And I thought that that's, you know, really cool if you don't have a lot of time to make a perfect miniature of something that has to be in the background of some kind of set. And that's also to keep in mind, you know, you can critique this kind of method with, oh, but then we don't make it in hand, and why not just do it in 3D, then all the, you know, the entire movie. But I think that if you can use this method to just for producing the stuff that needs to be in the background, that doesn't have to take that much attention, you can really use your power in other areas that are more focused, like puppet building or like the, you know, the hero props that are really important for the movie. So I think I need to speed up a little bit, but I can recommend the UV resin printing. You can also do molds. If you're a little bit firm with 3D, you can take this negative shape of whatever you need to cast in silicon, and then you can make a mold out of that. But that's maybe a bit more advanced. So lastly, I really want to show you my way of doing wigs, which is a thing that I bashed together out of some different methods that I heard about and learned and found around the web, where because I wanted for a long time to make some hair that really looked realistic but still had the possibility of being animated. And oftentimes I think the animatable hair that you have in the industry is very it looks very clumped together, so it looks almost wet or chunky or something. and I just wanted to find a way to do that more naturalistic wig look. So these are the recent wigs that I did for a very interesting project that I can't disclose right now, but it's in the pipeline. So yeah, very interesting. But let me show you how I do the wig stuff. So what you need, this is going to be a walkthrough of my wig making technique. So what you need for this is that you need your UV, no, not your UV resin, your PU resin, the polyurethane resin that you use to cast all your resin stuff. And then you need some nylon stockings, aluminium wire, thread, and a glue gun. And the way I do this is that as a BJD doll wig, if someone is familiar with that, you take your puppet's head and then you cover it with a nylon stocking. So like as if it were like a bank robber or something. And then you cover it with resin. And then when the resin has hardened, you cut out the shape of the wig, the shape of the hairline basically. And then then I found a way to attach the wires so that they won't fall off in animation, where I just apply the wires and then pour another layer of resin on top, because then they are kind of incorporated in the whole resin bald cap. On top of this resin bald cap, I put on a layer of mattress foam and then cover it with a layer of glue gun glue, so that I have this boxing out of the hair shape. So for an example, this little guy here on my screen, he has a very angular feel to his hairdress, which is quite important to just capture it at the foam stage, because you're not able to do it completely with hair, then it's going to be a nightmare. So you'll save yourself some time and just box out the shape with some mattress foam and cover that with glue gun glue. Yes, so for the hair itself, I like to use alpaca suri hair, which is a form of llama wool, which is just so fine in the texture that it resembles human hair perfectly. Like if you shrunk down human hair, it would look like this. And because I have been working with real human hair for puppets before this, and it feels too crude and it doesn't match the scale and stuff. So if you want to hit the scale, you should go for alpaca suri hair, but you can use any other fiber basically. So other tools you need a mini iron or a soldering iron. I like to use a mini iron because then you have more control over the heat. And with a soldering iron, you basically don't. But then you need a good scissor, a stiff-haired airbrush, a comb, and a tweezer. So let me show you how it's done. I'm going to show you a little video now. If I can turn it on. Yeah. So it's basically just starting with the lowest point of the hair, like all the way back. I like to start at the neck because that's the bottom layer of the hair. So I do one row in the back of the neck and then I dress it afterwards. So I don't want to put on too much hair at the time before I actually dress it with the scissor, because then you're gonna lose your overview and all that. But here you can see that it's also really important to keep control of the hair, because hair is such a messy thing with glue. You know, if you don't have control, you're gonna sit with glue everywhere and hair everywhere. So I just want to just prepare some strands first and close them off with a little bit of hot glue, and then sit with the small strands of hair and add them on with the hot glue. So the mini iron it makes it possible to kind of push the hairs into the glue gun glue and tighten them there. And the nice thing about having this glue that you can heat up and and then it will dry afterwards and heat up again, is that you can kind of sculpt a little bit with this hair. And I really like that technique, because I was frustrated that to use any other glue that is just, you do something and there's no going back. I like a process where you can kind of go back and forth and edit a little bit here and a little bit there. So I would recommend the glue gun glue. But basically, when I come to the threaded wires here, or the wires with thread on them, I like to just bulk out the shape of the strands by first putting on hair that is completely soaked in glue gun glue, and then adding less and less glue to the strand the more hair I put on. So that's the way I go about doing the big strands. And then in general, I would just say that it also depends on your hairdressing skills. So if you're not that skilled in hairdressing, you should go ask your friends if you can cut their hair and learn on them and then do your puppets. So I hope this was useful in some way for you. And if you have more questions, please let me know. But thank you so much. I hope I didn't take too much time. Oh. So I guess, yeah. See, now it's going crazy here. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone who stayed until the end to watch the talk.
Hello, Ida.
Hi.
We're starting the Q&A part of the conversation. Okay, this is from Camille Scudier. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm sorry.
Yes.
What is the tool you use to glue the hair to the head?
Oh, yes, that's the mini iron I was talking about. So when I do costume making, I basically have a teeny tiny iron on a stick, and then I just take out the iron head of this tool and then put in a wire. I forgot to say that I exchanged the head with a little piece of wire.
Okay. She praised your work. Super nice work. Every time, she says. Okay, more questions here. What was the idea behind Vocabulantis? How did it come about?
Oh, it has been a long time coming. It's actually a very project, and the idea comes from the Danish poet Morten Søndergaard, who is also a part of the project. So Morten Søndergaard has written the whole story and has created this amazing world of language with all the different kinds of creatures and areas of the world and so on. So the idea came from mainly Johan and mainly Morten Søndergaard.
Okay, he had an exposition. How do you say this? Museum-like exposition of his poems. Did he?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
He likes to play around with words in general. So he had an exhibition called the Word Apothecary or the Word Pharmacy or something.
Apothecary, like. Yeah. That's the one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how do you make the brief for the game from the inspiration of the poet?
I haven't been a part of the entire process with that because I came into the project like 3 years ago. But before 3 years ago, someone made like the transition from the poems to the story to all that. Yeah. So I'm not on top of that, really.
Okay. Another question. Did you were involved in the making of the backgrounds or just the puppets for the video game?
I am also involved with the prop making and the background sometimes, but my main responsibility is to keep on top of if Kurt and Carla needs anything, the puppets.
Mhm.
So when the animator is there, I tend to, take care of the face replacements, repainting, and, puppet doctor stuff. But I also do props, yeah.
Okay, because lighting for puppets in a video game project, it's very tricky. How did you get to the point where you figure out how much light did the puppet need before you put it in the environment and didn't have those troubles of lighting for each environment?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. And actually, I don't know, because that's our game experts that are sitting in this. And I can promise you that it has taken forever to, tweak the light, and it's still, it still needs tweaking. But yeah, it's a big thing.
Okay, we have a wig question from Hugo Soria. How do you animate the hair? How do you blend the wire in between the body of all the hair and the wires? How do you blend them together?
Yeah, so that's where I go from a lot of glue to less glue. So I tend to have, wires where I want the hair to be animatable. On my example, I didn't have that many wires, but if you really want to be able to, animate the whole hair, I would have wires everywhere. And then it's about, making a massive clump of hair and then adding slowly, like grading it out with other strands of hair. So the more animation you need on the hair, the more wires you need, basically. But there will be some areas that aren't animatable. Okay.
Another question. Could you talk about the Kickstarter project?
Of which one?
Which one do you want to talk about?
The Kickstarter project.
Yeah. Which project? I don't know. Maybe the Vocabulantes. We can start with that one.
Well, it is a project that is still in progress, and but we don't have a Kickstarter for it right now. But we are continuously applying for funding, because it's going to be a massive game, So yeah. In that way, it's kind of a Kickstarter, but not really. We don't have Kickstarters right now.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me check another question. Okay, for the Severe project, how long does it take you to test different materials combination to get the feel you want for the puppet?
Oh, that can take forever. That can really take Honestly, the biggest part of my work is to test out materials and to test out methods. And, as soon as you have that method dialed down and you're clear in exactly what you want from these materials, then the actual making is the least of it. So I think to actually use all the time you need, I don't know if it answers the question, but I can't say like you need 2 weeks every time on testing materials, but you definitely
just for material testing.
Yeah, a long time.
Okay, a question about UV resin. Where did you learn to use it for printing?
So I learned it when we bought a printer, and and then it's just looking at a lot of tutorials and getting it step by step, starting really slowly. So, but basically, I learned it when we got it last summer. So
okay,
a long time ago.
Like just using it.
Learning by doing. That's my middle name. And Asferg.
Okay. Now for the different material field for each project, how do you decide on the material you're gonna use to get that ending result for each project? Do you have a brief of the look of the character, or do you do some designing? So do you have a lining like these characters should look like this, or do you do you do your own proposing of look for the character?
I think it definitely starts very early in the process. It starts all the way down in the story. Like for Sibir, we knew that it was going to be a dark thing. I wasn't a part of story because I'm really not a story person, but I like to reflect the materials in the story because it makes sense, to capture that universe in the materials as well. I think, it's a mix between what the puppet needs to be able to do, but also what the puppet needs to express. Like, how is this puppet? Is it a soft, squishy character? Then we probably need soft, squishy materials. And if it's we need like something sharp and stuff. So in the design process, definitely.
Okay. Do you have any preference in materials to work with? Like clothes versus, I don't know, felt or?
I think it changes a lot. And right now I'm in my hairy felt phase, I think.
Okay.
I started a lot of needle felting after Totem. I've started using it on another project where I've really fallen in love with the material. So I think it's like these, like falling in love with the material for a while and then,
okay.
But I generally, the more materials, the better, I think.
Okay. So it's seasonal, depending on the project.
Definitely.
Okay. Why did you decide to go into stop motion?
When or why?
Why?
So I was really sick and tired of sitting in front of a screen all day at my school.
Oh, okay.
So I needed to do something else, and I took that stop motion course it was just a little puppet building exercise course. And when I found out that you can do something that creative that actually has a space in the animation industry and where you can really use your hands, I had to do that, and I couldn't go back ever. So
okay, you were hooked on it.
I was hooked so much.
And we thank you for it.
Thank you.
What's the more intricate prop you have made in UV resin printing beside the sewing machine you showed us?
Prop? Now I'm not such a prop person, so I haven't printed that many props. I would say, I think, well, we do a lot of intricate props here at the studio, but for me, I would say it's the work with the eyes, getting just the right amount of denting in the iris, and then, but that's only for printing the base. I don't know. A lot of different things, I think.
Okay. Would you like to get into a large feature film, a stop motion feature film?
Yes, that would be awesome. Yeah. At some point, I don't know where, or when, or what, or if we're gonna do something at the studio, the stop motion, the Wildfly studio. But yeah, in a way, yes, and in a way, no, because I really like to keep my hands on all the parts of the puppet making production. And you tend to, if you go to a bigger feature film production, you tend to only do one thing. So maybe I would be bored only doing hair for, I don't know.
Definitely. How many persons do you have? Hi. Bye. How many persons do you have in your team?
Oh, it differentiates a lot from project to project. We hire in, and I just also want to exclaim that, all these projects I've showed that there's been so many people involved, and I haven't done everything on all the puppets. Like for for Vocabulensis, Kurt and Carla, I have done the costumes and silicone casting and face replacements and stuff like that. But for example, the hair I haven't done, the sculpt of the shoes I haven't done. So it differs a lot. Like sometimes it's just me and Johan here at the studio, and sometimes we have a bigger project where we are a lot of people. So I think we are 10 or 15 at the moment. So it changes.
Okay. Now, in long-running projects like Vocabulantis, after the puppets are made, the puppets are scanned, and the light has been tested, do you go in again for anything else of the project? Because it's a long-running project. Does it changes a lot?
So
through time?
Yes, it is very organic to do a game. Then you figure out that, oh my God, we need a new level of we forgot an area in the game, or we want to add on one, and then you need a new character, and then you need to build that new character or build the props to that character. But also, the puppets get used a lot when you animate them a lot, so I still need to be able to fix them up and stuff when they need to be animated. So definitely, there always pops up some things that can be done.
Okay.
But that's good when you have more projects at once, then you can do.
Yeah, you can go forward and backward, right?
Exactly.
Okay, a question from Hugo Soria. How do you define the detail going into the puppets' accessories? It seems to him your projects show a deep level of detail. Is it the team's philosophy to do so, or is it project-driven?
I think it's project-driven because Sibir is not very detail-oriented in that way. It has more focus on another thing. But I think it also depends on the creators, like the fabricators. And I really like to try to achieve as much detail as possible. But yeah, it is defined by the project and the design. But I like it with all the details.
Yeah, because it's not like the same always, right? The same image always.
No, I sure hope not. That would be crappy.
Okay, would you be able or willing to work in another project that's not from the studio?
Yes, of course. And we also at Wirefly, we have this puppet making service, as you could say, that we take commissions on. So if anyone needs to have puppet builds, we can do it in here at the studio, especially in Corona times, you don't want to travel around. So we're willing to make puppets here and send them off. We've done that a few times. But also I would be more than happy to travel around for different projects and meet up with new people. I think everyone is so nice in the stop motion industry. It's weird.
Okay, another question. For people who want to get into stop motion professionally, what do you recommend to study? A particular, line of a career or a course or any sort?
I'm not educated in stop motion in any way. So I've done my studies myself. But I would definitely recommend taking some kind of animation course or animation like that focus on the collaboration in filmmaking, because I think people wants to get into it doesn't know that it's so much about collaborating and not just about you making your own stuff. Like half of it is to communicate the vision of the director in a team with a lot of people. So find somewhere where you can learn how to co-work with others in a creative field, and then you'll be fine. Then you can just do stop motion on the side and apply that afterwards.
Okay, so kind of mixing self-teaching with a course or something like that.
I think so, because I don't really know any schools that are like that. Like I don't know any stop motion schools basically. So
okay. Okay, about sponsoring and budget. How did the studio get the budget for the Vocabulantis project and for the short project, the different shorts, Totem and Severe?
Totem is a Kickstarter from Katrine. So Katrine Glenhammer is the one that are doing Totem, but with Firefly as a supporting studio in the back, So she handled all that stuff, and I just stepped in as an assisting puppet maker. And for Sibir and for Vocabulantis, just a lot of, painful fund application.
Okay.
Yeah, horrible. But that work has to be done. But I'm not the money man, so I don't have that responsibility.
You don't have to worry about that.
No.
Still, do you have any government funding you can go to there, or stuff art directed funding for projects that you can go to?
Yeah, we have a really good one here in our part of Denmark, which is called the West Danish Film Fund, and they are just so happy to support anything in their region. So yeah, I would recommend looking for the local funds as well as the national funds. Yeah.
Okay.
But
right now, sorry, what?
I don't know much about it because I'm not applying for the money.
Okay. Right now, there are only trailers available, right? For Vocabulantis and for Totem and for Severe, right?
Totem is out on festivals right now, so it is done.
Okay.
And it's a wonderful little movie, and I think you can pay to see it online or attend some of the festivals to see it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Is it available pay-per-view on Vimeo or in another platform?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you have to write Katrine Glenhammer about that. I'm actually not sure where you can go and see it. I think you can pay. Yeah, I think you can pay for it on Vimeo.
Okay.
Yeah. But not.
For the other two projects, there are only teasers, right? Available on Vimeo or YouTube?
Yeah. Vocabulantis is not done at all. It needs to, we need to make the game now. Now we have to look at the vision and the story and all that. So the production will take some time. Hopefully we'll start next year producing. And what was it? Sibir still needs some funding to go further than it has gone now.
Okay. Do you have any, how do you call it? Any room in your department, in the studio, for students to do their school
internship?
Work? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, internship.
Yeah, we often take on interns, actually. So it's definitely worth applying. And some periods we can take on some, but others, when it's, low tide with funding or whatever, and we're not really in production, we don't take on as many. So it really depends on when you ask, but definitely anyone can ask if they want.
So it depends on the project and on the school in the year, right?
Yeah, but it's hard to say when it's a good time to apply. I think we always keep the mails we get from students.
Okay. Let me check if there's something else here. The story for Severe, how did it came along?
So again, I'm not a story person, but Severe is a branch.
Did you hear anything?
Huh?
Did you hear anything about it?
Yeah, I've heard about the story, but I didn't create it. So it's basically created by, I don't know, I don't remember the scriptwriter right now, but also by Johan Oettinger, who is the owner of Firefly. So he is very much a story person, very good at it. And I think it's in the same line of thought as his earlier 7 Minutes in the Warsaw Ghetto, which is also about Nazi Germany and yeah, you know, the ferocities in the Second World War.
Okay, like dark environment, dark
Yeah,
mood.
Yeah. But they both have this cool thing with where we comb in the eyes afterwards. So it's real human eyes, just like in Madame Tutli Putli, and we have this crazy head attachment that you actually put on this hat with a stick, and then the camera hangs in front of you, and then you move around.
Motion capture?
Yeah, in a way, it's a bit like a hybrid of things.
I see. Okay, we're wrapping on the conference right now.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank you very much, Ida, for joining us. If you want to see or get in touch with Ida, her social information and networks are available. And well, keep in touch if you want to know more about the projects, because they're getting done next year. Vocabulante maybe next year, right?
Starting next year to get
maybe.
Who knows? Who knows, really?
Okay, let's keep our fingers crossed. Anyway.
Yes.
Thank you again, Aida. Gracias a todas las personas que se conectaron. Por favor, sigan en contacto para el resto de las transmisiones del Festival Stop Motion. Hoy es el último día, no se pierdan de nada. Gracias por acompañarnos.
Muchas gracias.
Sigue la premiación y sigue así que no se vayan. Thank you, Aida.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you so much.